Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Kawneer number 050712 end load long arm package and long arm package for double acting doors. So this is going to be a replacement arm that you're going to see in double acting aluminum storefront. This is an end load arm. There are two types of arms that are end load or side load, and it literally just has everything to do with how you connect the arm to the spindle coming from the overhead concealed closer body. You can either put the door down on the bottom pivot and then bring it to the spindle and approach that from the edge of the door, the 1 3/4 or the 2 1/4 inch edge of the door, whatever it is. You're then going to use this mounting block that's included here. And a couple of these, looking at the fastener package, a couple of black oxide Allen drive screws that will go through there and then tighten in. And that's how that's going to end load. A side load arm is the identical concept, except literally the face of the arm is cut out to receive that mounting block and the two bolts. There are times when you cannot use an end load arm, even though that's very common. A side load arm would be, if you have the one instance that comes to mind, a wood door. If you have an overhead concealed closer, and imagine if you were trying to attach that, there's no way to get it onto the pivot, onto the bottom pivot, onto the closer, onto the bottom pivot. So you notch literally the face of the door. You put the door down, you tip it into the opening, and then you have the mounting block, a couple of bolts, and then a finish plate that goes over it. In addition to that, those types of closers, as does an end load arm, have these two holes drilled in the outer edge of this. That's meant for you to be able to take the hex cap screws that are here. There are two of them, and these star washers. And you're going to drill through the face of the door, literally, on both sides of the door, in fact. And it's going to look like this when you're done. The reason it's like that is because, depending on how tight you make those bolts, you can cant the door. Tip it this way to draw it into the alignment that you need. So that's what those would be used for. Then the other two screws here, a couple of screws and a couple of split ring washers. Those are going to be what you're going to use to hold the arm down to the top of the door. Okay, that sort of preparation is where I'd be seeing that. Yeah, so that's where I would end up seeing that. Okay, and there'd be two of them. Where this is used for, there's not really any published information from the manufacturer. The purpose of this video is to provide a visual review of the item along with whatever explanation can be provided in terms of how to apply it. Kawneer doesn't really, they don't themselves make hardware. Hardware, I believe, in my opinion, is a means to an end for Kawneer. They're a door and frame company, and hardware is a necessary component of that. They have items that are branded under their own name, like exit devices. Their 1686, their 1786 exit device, the panel line. They're not making those; they're bringing them in. The point of the matter is, based on the publications, the documentation that's available from Kawneer as it relates to their hardware and installation manuals, seems to be, for the overwhelming majority of it, it's non-existent. That's okay, because if you are in the door hardware industry, something like that's not going to trip you up. This video is to help get you to know whether or not this is appropriate. Overall length, about 8 3/4. Overall width of the arm, where the spindle comes, about 1 5/16 inches. The rest of it looks like it's about 1 1/8 inches. Okay. Thickness of the arm, down over here, it's about a 1/4 inch. The weight of this is 1.00 pound, roughly. It's 1.01 pound. It has an inserted roll pin in there. And admittedly, I'm not thoroughly sure the role of the roll pin. It obviously is going to seat into the top of the door. And other than fitting into a hole, I'm not familiar with the role of the roll pin. It might just be another stabilizing feature to the arm, but I've not seen that before. Because I don't make a living in the field installing this material, I'm more an inside sales type of roll. I've not encountered that roll pin in the times that I've worked on overhead concealed door closers. And if you know its role, please share that with us. Let's switch to the screen view and take a closer look at what supporting documentation we do have. Okay, so here is the item that we are looking at. Not much to stare at here, but does give us an idea of what it looks like. Your hex cap screws, your round head or pan head screws, your block, your bolts. Exit device, service part. End long arm package for double acting doors includes arm, block, and screws. Service parts catalog. Before we fire that up, let's copy that part number, then go to the document and do a find function on the keyboard. You'll indeed find it. End load arm package, not a lot of additional information about the arm. However, in this part of the service catalog, you are presented with the other arms. So if your door says Kawneer, you ought to be able to narrow it down really quick because they have only 3 arm types that are listed here. You've got an end load and you've got the side load that I had mentioned earlier. Okay, you're going to know real quick which it is. Then you have a slide track arm. This is used on independently hung doors, meaning there's going to be an overhead closer, but the door is hung on hinges in this type of regard, or offset pivots. It could be hung on offset pivots, or some method of hinge, continuous hinge, etc. Independently hung, meaning the closer is not playing a role really in doing any of the work of hanging the door, which it doesn't in an end load or a side load project. But what changes between these two is the vertical axis of pivoting. That is a line right through that spindle, all the way down to the bottom of the door where the bottom pivot is. It would be center hung in this case because that allows it to be double acting. Same here, right down the center. But in an independently hung door, it's a fancy way of saying there's probably hinges on the door, is the fancy way of saying independently hung. You end up doing it as single acting because hinges won't double act, standard butt hinges or a continuous hinge. That becomes an arm that we call a slide track or an offset arm. This allows that vertical axis of pivoting of the closer to no longer be fixed vertically down through the door, because the door will have its own vertical axis of pivoting, and this arm, this track, and this slide block will allow that vertical axis of pivoting to work in conjunction with the door's vertical axis of pivoting. For single acting doors, it's not positively an offset arm. It could still be a side or an end load arm when it's single acting. But if you have butts on the door or a continuous hinge or something other than a pivot at the bottom, you've got to then have this offset arm. Now this document is from 2018. That document is tied to this item. If you click on the manufacturer's page as seen here, you'll be able to pull up all of the service parts catalog, and I have them going back years. The 2019 is the current one, and we'll continue to update them as we come across them. On this page, you can also review not only all of the Kawneer products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a full architectural catalog, and then again, the service parts catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. In conclusion, why would you need this arm? Well, what I have found is with enough use and enough action on the door, this preparation for the spindle is going to become rounded out. That is certainly predicated on huge volume of operation on the door, plus improper maintenance. When screws can start to go loose, when the block screws can come loose, that spindle's got more room to move. That door's got more room to move in every respect. And that's going to cause it to get some movement on the door before the spindle is engaged, and that force from the spindle being static and being under spring and hydraulic pressure is going to cause that key preparation in there to wear. And over time, you're just going to wear it out to the point where you'll push the door, and then the door will be under clear spring power. Close it, close it, close it, close it, close it. The door stops, but the closer spindle continues to rotate, even though the door is still open. And that's probably a worn arm. Is typically where I see that. If you have any questions on the Kawneer 050712 end long arm package for double acting doors or any other Kawneer product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.